inspire greatness at track number 9. Stay on the right track and let your light shine. Step by step, reach for what's true. Track number 9, your greatness is waiting for you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to track number 9. So happy you could join me this Saturday. You got your coffee, you got your tea, you're joining us on your cell phones, on your tablets, in your living room, while you're on your way to the gym, while you're running your errands. Just so glad that you would be able to join us for another Saturday. And I want to mention that thanks to modern technology, this is a pre-recorded show. Yes, this is a pre-recorded show recorded Thursday night so that we would be ready for Saturday for your viewing pleasure. So I'm glad that you could join us. Today, we look at some of our civil rights leaders. Today, we're going to talk about some of the architects and artists and musicians and people who have contributed much to our society. But because of their sexual preference, many of them had to stay in the background. One person I really want to mention, and Dr. K. Whitehead, that has a really, really good show that I'm always listening to on WEAA, Today with Dr. K. One of the things that she had mentioned, and I believe she was the moderator to celebrate civil rights lawyer, her name was Anna Pauline Murray. And Anna Pauline Murray was one of the main architects behind the scenes, because she was a woman, behind the scenes that helped Thurgood Marshall form the basis of his argument that helped to dismantle separate but equal and helped to bring in the civil rights era. Pauline Murray is what many people had called her. And what some people may not know is that she lived an alternative lifestyle. She was a woman that was in Episcopal Church. She was born right here in Baltimore, very intelligent. But yes, she lived an alternative lifestyle. The other person I want to mention is Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin was one of the main strategists for the 1963 March on Washington, where our brother, Dr. Martin Luther King, had given that speech. And just like many in the past, they had to kind of stay in a closet. They had to kind of stay in the background because of their lifestyle. And this, and then, society, especially during that time, they were not accepting of people who were gay, in the gay life, bisexual, trans. They just weren't really that accepting. In fact, it used to be against the law. You would be arrested. They would have parties. They would be underground parties, and they had to be in a secret place where they couldn't be arrested or wouldn't be discovered. They would have raids and everything. So, sometimes people look at, gay lesbian rights and associated with civil rights and see that that's another type of movement that where people had to actually fight for their right to love who they're going to love, to be who they want to be, and can be free without being murdered or hurt because of your lifestyle, because of who you choose to love. So today, we're going to have an individual in the studio who I have so much admiration for. He's one of the kindest, just a beautiful human being, absolutely beautiful. And I'm just so glad I'm wearing my little special hat, LOVE, because I love this guy. And when you meet him, all you feel is love and just good, positive energy. He is let me get this right, he is the chairman of the LGBTQ Commission here in Maryland. And he's also, I believe, the chairman of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. But I'm going to bring him in the studio, and he'll be able to say that, and let you know exactly what it is that he do. I'm so happy that I'm able to interview this guy. It is Pride Month, and people are celebrating Pride, and I'm just glad to have him here. So, can you please bring our guest in the studio, Mr. Keith Holt? I'm so excited. Oh, I'm
Hello.
happy. I'm just so happy that you are here. I'm almost turning red. You see, the little Indian. I got a little Indian in my blood. You see, my little cheeks are turning red. That's the Indian in me.
I love it. I love it. We all got a little bit up in us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love
I remember
it.
one time somebody had said, I got Panamanian in me. I was like, oh Lord. Mm-mm-mm. But
Yes,
yes, I'm
definitely.
I'm so happy to finally have you in the studio, and what an appropriate season to have you here as we celebrate Pride and all of the advocacy and all of the work that you have done to make sure that we have an inclusive society and to make sure that people are safe and protected and not harmed for who it is that they love and the lifestyle that they live. So I'm super happy about having you here. So I probably messed it all up. Tell us exactly the titles that you have. I know you have your own organization. Please tell us about that. I know that you are the chairperson of so many organizations here. So please take it from the top.
Okay. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on. I definitely appreciate all the things that you do. You as a person that I look at with so much respect, and you always kept it real with me, always been honest, and those are traits that you really don't find in too many people. So I love you, and I'm just so happy to be on here with you, and yeah, it's an honor, definitely. Um, well, for those watching, my name is Keith Holt. I am the chairperson for LGBTQ with the Maryland State Democratic Party, and I am the president for the Maryland LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. And I'm a consultant, regular community guy. How I like to describe myself. I think as we get more in the conversation, I don't think that lots of times we know what journey or what road we're going to take. We're set on that road, and we're set on that journey. God decides, and we just walk down the journey. If you would have asked me about, well, I don't know, I've been doing this for a while, but if you would have asked me before I started doing it, would this be the road? I probably would say no. But I think yeah, I think we're placed in certain situations for a reason. So, about the nonprofit, I also work with an organization called Begin Anew. Basically, what Begin Anew is, it uses traditional and non-traditional forms of education to address public health concerns. Whether that's healthcare, we have started doing the World AIDS Day celebration that actually grew to be the largest community powered celebration in the city. We
Mm,
just did the Baltimore Know Your Status Ball and Conference that brought about 400 people down to get information on their health care, to get information on voting, register to vote, and so many other different things. So Begin Anew does great work. We also have our Johnny Overdose Initiative, which we refer to as Joy, that's actually named after my uncle Jonathan. Both of my mom's younger brothers died for the disease of substance abuse, and this was our way of keeping their memory alive. So my uncle Jonathan didn't have any kids, but he always called me his little buddy, and he was my big buddy, and definitely honoring him by tackling substance abuse and substance use disorder and things like that.
yeah, I definitely appreciate that. I appreciate the work that you're doing. And you mentioned your uncles, and you mentioned the overdose work that you're doing and making sure that people are fed. And I guess that kind of goes into what I want to kind of have the listening public to understand is that just about every family have somebody in their uncle, a cousin, a brother, a niece, a nephew that lives an alternative lifestyle. And I
Hmm.
think that what I would like for people to understand is that, gay, lesbian, trans people, they are human beings like everybody else, and they face the same difficulties that other people face, except that it can be 10 times that. When it
Hmm.
comes to unemployment, when it comes to homelessness, when it comes to drug addiction, when it comes to suffering from HIV, when it comes to all of those things, that community is hit pretty hard. Can you expound on that a little bit for me?
Yeah. Like for example, my Uncle Jonathan, he was not in the community. However, he knew I was, and he accepted me, and he loved me, and things like that. And I think, you know, living in Baltimore, I think it's so hard for us not to understand that we have someone in our family that does a lot of different things.
Mhm.
We would have a person in our family, in our community, and our friend circle that may have been infected or affected by HIV that we may have met throughout our lives. We may have a person that may have battled substances. We have so many people as far as Baltimore. I think it's hard to really get away from that just because of the city that we have and the city that we live in. We have a lot of social determinants of health as well.
Mhm.
And, the term social determinants of health, for those that may wondering, is really, though, it's really the things that kind of stem from a deeper issue. Like, let's say HIV, for example. When we look at the social determinants of health for that, it may be transportation, it may be food, it could be
Mhm.
jobs. There's so many different things that contribute to the raising rates of HIV in our communities. So as far as Pride Month, the month that we are in, I think the reason people say how like tough Baltimore may be, but also how Baltimore may also be a very diverse city. Let's be honest. I think because the people from our community, and please excuse my language, we grew up early not taking no shit. So I think we may So I know at least my generation and folks like that. It was like this is my lifestyle. You're going to respect it, and that's just how it is.
Mhm.
So I think that's why Baltimore may be kind of a quote unquote tough city, but is also a very diverse city at the same time.
It is quite diverse, and I definitely understand where you're coming from and how a person has to actually fight to be who they are. I can
Mhm.
remember on a basketball court, and I know my cousins, they're probably watching, man. I played basketball all day, every day. It could be in summertime like this at
You
6
don't want to see
a.m.
me, Monica. You don't want to see me in a game of 50. You don't want to see me. Let's come on. Let's run it up. Let's run it up.
Yeah, let's run it up. But at 6 a.m. like this, I would be. It used to be a basketball court at Stockton, and it's a small alley street called Smithson Street, right in West
Mm.
Baltimore, in Sandtown, right off of Riggs Avenue. And I would be on that basketball court first thing in the morning, especially in the summertime, 5 a.m. And you could catch me there when the lights get ready to go down. I was always
Oh
there, and I
wow.
had such a hard time. I had a guy named Phil Edward Smith. I mean, I could just think of so many other guys, Vincent, Gregory Carmichael, so many of them. They used to bust my chops and really just be like, you need to be in the
Mm.
house playing with doll babies. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna play with the doll babies after I tear you up. And I used to just be, it made me more determined to want to beat them. So I definitely understand,
Mhm.
how you gotta actually fight to be who you are. I've always been a little tomboy, and they would just give me the blues, right? But I didn't shy away from it because my I was fortunate that my parents loved me and gave me so much love. They had their issues, but one thing for certain, and two things for sure, they loved this cute little brown girl. They loved me and showed me nothing but love and cared for me and whatnot. So yeah, I've always been comfortable in my skin. What you see is what you get. But now we have some the younger parents and
Mm.
the way that they address their children in terms of an 8-year old, or a 7-year old. I'm from the old school. When my
Mm.
grandmother when she saw somebody down the street, she'd say, you know, that old gal down the street. She would
Or
what that
like
was.
they're a little sweet,
Yeah,
you have
you know,
stuff like that.
with the
Yeah.
little sugar in his tank, but they would always shake their hand. You know, that funny
Hmm.
gal
It
or
always
that
be a
funny
hand
girl.
movement or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or yeah, the little one down the street. Jonathan, the little one down the street.
Hmm. Uh,
Always amusing. But it seemed like things are different now when it comes to younger, much younger people who haven't even had an experience. For an 8-year old to say, "Hey, I feel like I'm a girl," and the
mhm.
parents will say, "Okay, well, we'll dress you as a girl." That's just kind of because again, I'm old school, and that just kind of new on me. Because you don't want to force your child to be something that they're not comfortable being. But I just never seen a parent that would kind of, let an 8-year old kind of make that decision and go as far as taking hormones and everything at 8. I'm like, man, that's kind of astounding. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
I'm sorry,
go
go ahead.
no, you go,
Yeah,
Keith.
oh no. I think with anything, I think, of course you always want to do what's right for you and your family and your
Hmm.
children. I do also believe that parents need support too. Parents don't
Mm,
know everything. I remember my mom told me a long time ago that is no handbook in being a parent.
mm,
So parents do need support. I know I have talked to parents, and for those that out there that may have a child or something like that, and they may, you know, want advice or direction, I definitely do that, and I try
mhm,
my best to, um, provide those means of communication. I think it's a situation where I think the parent and the child need to both be able to come together and kind of understand. I know for me, growing up, and part of the reason why I say this now, like I've had, my mom and dad have been nothing but supportive, but I think as I was growing they really didn't know because I used to hide it. So when they used to ask, I used to be like, no, 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 no. So I started doing things like, leaving the house and moving in with friends, moving in with this person, doing this and doing that, just because I didn't know how to have those conversations. So I think the first thing is trying to make sure that y'all can have those conversations, because the same way that is hard for the person that's in the community, I also think that it can also be hard for the parents too. So
mhm,
you need to be able to sit down and have that conversation. I have so many people that may automatically cut their parents or cut their family off because they may feel as though their parents may not accept it. And now, if they absolutely don't, then you have to do what's right for you and your mental. But I also think that we could try to give people a little bit of leeway. I think education is important. That if you're not in the community, most of the time people don't know.
mhm,
So when people are so quick to bash people or even label people certain titles like homophobic, transphobic, things like that. I often wonder, was there any education efforts that were put in
mhm,
first? Because if you're
mhm,
not a part of the community, you may not know, and a person could be just making a very general mistake that they may not know. And I think that those are times, instead of getting upset, instead of getting mad, those are the moments that you need to have that education part and be like, okay, wait a minute, this is who I am. This is how I identify. This is how I live. This is how I do things like that. Now, as far as young people, I think people go through many stages. I think that's why going to talk to folks and ensuring that it's the right decision for you as you move forward, and is definitely important. um so I think, people going about it the legal way. Back in our day, people used to go about it the illegal way. But
mhm,
now we have so many different resources and so many different things. Like, you have Chase Breast and you have doctors and things like that that provide hormone therapy if that's something that you want to do. There are places that provide free, you know, mental therapy is folks that it's free places that provide all types of different services that I think people could use, because it is true in our community. We do suffer from higher rates of depression, isolation, suicide, so
Mhm.
many different things. So I do think I am a huge champion for mental health and ensuring that people maintain their mental health.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So you saying that they do have places and outlets for parents or guardians to be able to get some assistance? Because I agree that it's not only the individual once they get a certain age and discover like, hey, I might be a little different than the other girls in my class, or I might be different than the guys in my class. And I've seen some males that really just can't handle that their son might want to live an alternative lifestyle, and they go so above and beyond. They'll start beating on them, start punching
Hmm.
on them, and think that that's going to make him tough, and think that that's going to make him more macho or more manly. So parents and guardians, they go through a lot and trying to figure out how to deal with, because that's certainly no way to deal with a young 9 or 10 year old kid. You giving him a football, he say, well, I don't want to play football, and they make him play football, they make
Yeah.
him play basketball, or they toughen that we got to toughen you up. That is definitely old school thinking, and I'm glad that you had mentioned that there are supports for
Yeah.
families and guardians of children who live an alternative lifestyle. I just never seen it be so young.
Hmm.
People
Yeah.
don't give themselves a chance to date the opposite sex before they say, well, I don't, how do you know if you never tried it? So, you come right off the steps. And I was like, wow, that was just so new to me. I come from a very religious and traditional family. And
Hmm.
even though I live an alternative lifestyle and have for quite some time, I just never was, whatever is you do it, that's it, that you take that to your bedroom. I never was one of those
Hmm.
people. I always, if I was going to go to Pride, I'd be like, don't put that damn camera in my face. I don't need my family seeing me.
Hmm.
Not
But I
that I
have a
was lying.
question. I have a
Yeah.
question. Do you think that was more so because living in, like, being a part of the black community, or being
Mm,
from the inner city? Because I think a lot of that also contribute to that. I think, you know, for example, like how you mentioned how some male figures are, as far as if their son is going, if their son come out and say, hey, I want to that I was not born in the right body, or I choose to
mhm,
or I choose to date men, or whatever the case may be, if they are like gender or sexually diverse. I think being growing up in the inner city, I think that has a lot to do with it too. I think some, especially black fathers, from what I've seen,
mm,
it's a little harder for men sometimes in the family than it is for women. I think that's why lots of times, if you notice, like a gay male like myself, I've always, got along great with the women and the females and stuff around me. Um, Lots of times, because normally females and women are less judgmental. This is just my
mhm,
personal experience. I don't know what
mhm,
everybody
mhm,
else went through, but from my personal experience, and so that's how those things been. I think sometimes with males, I think the mindset is that, especially in the black community, what I've always found, which is really really strange, is that they're more okay saying that I have a I have a child in jail than they would be okay with saying that my child is gay. I don't know
mm,
if you feel that that's kind of right, but that's kind of some of the experiences that I've seen, as far as in black households. And also, normally we've been raised, or our parents been raised, or our grandparents been raised, however way it go, is that what happens in the house stays in the house. So
mhm,
in addition to holding all of this stuff, as far as what society feels make you a strong black man, you also gotta keep it to yourself. You also wasn't supposed to tell nobody. You
Mm-hmm.
also wasn't supposed to embarrass your parents. So it's a lot, I think, when it comes to people in the city that's a part of our community. I definitely do. I think you know, yeah, it comes a lot. I think for, you know, males, it's a little bit harder
Mm-hmm.
for them to say, okay, well, my son is now doing this, or my son is doing that, versus them saying, okay, my daughter is now um, doing this, or my daughter is now doing that. I think it's just how society view men in general, that
Mm-hmm.
they supposed to be this hyper masculine, come through, Mr. Fits It. I had a landlord one day, and I'm sorry, I'm about to digress for a second. I had a
That's
landlord one time that was so funny. She had rented a house to me, right? Um, Luckily, I'm not a toxic person at these days and times, because I would put you on blast if you're listening. But 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 I was renting a house, and things were breaking in the house. And I was calling her like, this need to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. And she first, for a while, she wasn't sending nobody out to fix anything. And then she just blatantly told me, that's why I like to rent to men. She was like, because men normally take on these projects, they normally do it themselves. Men like to fit stuff. That's why I don't rent to women, I rent to men. And I had to let her know, despite my gender, darling, I am a tenant and
mm-hmm.
I pay you to fit stuff. And don't get me wrong, like, I don't mind doing stuff. Like, I was just working on my car the other day. But at the end of the day, if I'm paying you rent and if this is included in the things that you should be doing, I refuse to go with my wrench into the bathroom and fix the plumbing. You get what I'm saying? Like, I mean, but I think it's society in general have a lot of gender norms and a lot of gender
Mm-hmm.
expectations that I think are being broken down. Not even just not even really amongst our community, but even if you look at you know the heterosexual community, I think even how those things are kind of being broken down little by little. If you notice, look at how a lot of rappers dress nowadays. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they don't dress like they used to necessarily. A lot of things from our community gets taken because we are normally the stylist those those celebrities that's giving them their tips and things like that. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why you may see people early on that may be curious about different things, because I think it's more in the media, it's more on TV. We are being talked about a lot more than we've ever been talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think that's why it's also a shine on our community, but I think we also have to be careful, um, as far as like safety and still um, making sure that this, making sure that people are making the right decisions for them too. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I will say that I do believe that, particularly in the African American community, because of the machismo, I can only speak from my own lens, that men who, especially black men, if you think about our experience and a black man's experience in the United States, in this country, they, like, this country and leadership sometimes try to strip black men of everything, their masculinity. They try to, I guess they say, emasculate, if you will, where a black man is in such a bad position, he don't even have the ability to take care of his family, because it's hard to get a good job, and then he end up breaking the law, he ended out of prison, and then sometimes it actually seems intentional that women are elevated over top of men, especially black males. Like, they will hire a black woman to be over top of him. Like, it just seemed like the country is can be intimidated by black males, and that's just black males, period, regardless of if you live an alternative lifestyle or whatever. It seems like black males are just so intimidating, where they will take Tamir Rice or a young kid, and when they kill him and print a story, they'll say this black man or this young man, this black male, grown, and this kid could be 12, but they always be like consider him a man. Whereas if it
Mm-hmm.
was a Caucasian kid, that's a child. But when it comes to the black male, this man came in the store and tried to steal 4 bottles of water. So they chased this man down, killed him, and the owners got off. But the way that they depict it, and I think because the psyche of black men is just that I gotta hold on to something. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta, if I can't hold on to nothing else, it's gotta be my masculinity. Like that's the last thing to go. So sometimes you can say things to a black male and he'll go off on you about some damn McDonald's fries. You'll be like, damn, bro, it's just fries. I ain't asking no damn large. I want a medium. I don't want it now. This you can just send them off about some damn fries. And I feel like it's probably because of the journey of black men in the country and how he's always the target. He's always the target of murder. He's always the target of incarceration. He's always the target of, so the last thing he have is masculinity. And even if he is, living an alternative lifestyle, he's afraid to let anybody know. So he gonna be down low because that's the last thing to go. All he have to hold on to is his masculinity. And if people see him being with a dude as something that causes him to be effeminate or soft or whatever, then he liable to go off, man. They had some horrific cases where some people were going to out a guy and he ended up killing everybody. He was so he was so hell bent on nobody not knowing that he was sleeping with a man. He killed his whole family, and that's happened several times. That he's so afraid that people going to learn that he is sleeping with a man, he end up killing a person before they get a chance to even say anything or whatever. So it is I don't know, it's a lot that goes on in the community, and it's a lot that people in the community are faced with, and the parents and the guardians of the people in the community, especially young people that they're faced with. It's a lot of challenges, really
Mm-hmm.
is.
Yeah, I think, you know, that really when it comes back to communities sticking together too.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
I was saying before, like I've said somewhere that if you are in a space, God forbid we ever get in this space, but we're ever in this space that we're in a room and someone runs in and they have a gun and they are a white supremacist or something and they want to kill all black people, they're not going to say, okay, all straight black people over here, all
mm,
gay black people over here.
mm,
No, they are going to, yeah, we all it's not going to matter. So I do think when we talk about services and things like that with the African American community, that people who are a part of the community and that also are people of color should also be involved in those groups as well.
mm,
A couple years ago for Pride, we which was actually the first time that the NAACP and had actually did something on Pride. I did a Pride in your polls where Senator Murray Washington was a panelist. We had the then director of LGBTQ Affairs, London, and we did it during Black Pride with the NAACP as a partner. That was when Reverend Little and Joshua Hirsch was a part, and we were able to create an event. Like I said, that was the first time the NAACP really did
mm,
anything for Black Pride, and it
mm,
was amazing to have so many people that were people of color being in that room to learn about different resources. Like, I may be gay, but at the end of the day, the first things that you may see when you see me is the fact that I'm black and that I'm a man. So I thought it was really, really important that we had those conversations. Again, shout out to Senator Murray Washington for being in the room. She actually was able to help some people with employment while she was there as well,
mm,
which was really, really, really awesome. So I think when we have, well, I don't think I know when we have so many of these programs and stuff like that, I do think that it's important that we make space for each other while we're in there. And the same thing in the LGBTQ community. You have so many divisions going on in the community. Sometimes you may have, you know, our transgender siblings may not get along with our lesbian siblings, or our lesbian siblings don't get along with our gay siblings. And you got all this kind of stuff going on. Again, the same analogy still goes with it. If we're at some kind of event where the entire community is at, and if a person has a problem with the community, they're not necessarily, going to pick, okay, well, I don't want to go at the lesbians, I don't want to go at the, like, most likely they're coming for the entire community. So the need that we're seeing now is that people need to stick together more. When our current occupant of the White House, um, don't really want to say president, but our current occupant of the White House, when he cut programs, he's
Mm,
not just cutting it for lesbians, or he's not just cutting it for bisexuals, or he's not just cutting it for people who may identify as queer, or people that may identify as same gender loving. He's cutting LGBTQ plus resources. He's
mhm,
cutting resources that really benefit marginalized communities, like people of color. Those are the programs that he's cutting. So now it's a time for us to stick together. Like, even when Vice President Harris was running for election, I was in a barbershop really fussing at people at one point because they were like, "We don't want no woman president. She don't
mm,
know if she black. She don't know if she black." At the end of the day, she's more identifying to our struggle than the current person we have in there.
mhm,
So what difference do that make? You know what I mean? So I think really putting that education out there is important. Like, even during the last election, I was able to work with some nonprofit organizations as well as they did ride to the polls to ask them. I think it's important that we take people to the polls to make sure that people have that support when they go to the polls. As we know, sometimes it's all types of things going on. Luckily in Maryland, we may not necessarily have these problems, but in other cities and states, it's a lot of, bullying, or it's a lot of tactics that go on to keep people from the polls. So I felt, even though we really don't have too many reports of this, we still need to be ready. You don't want to wait until you get a report of a person that say,
mm,
"Hey, I was at the polls and I feel like I was discriminated against and not able to vote." You don't want to wait till you hear that. So last election, we were able to um, talk to some nonprofits around the city that were like, "You know what, we will provide rides to polls, and we will bring the people back to our location." So that way,
that's
if a
good.
person do feel like they were discriminated against, all you got to do is go right to the car, and
Mhm.
somebody is in a car that will be able to assist you. And
Yeah,
like, I was popping up at polls and everything because I wanted a problem. Like, so
you wanted to smoke, huh?
I was like,
Yeah.
"Come on now, come on."
Well, I
But
will. I will say that I just learned today, and I always tell people when you're listening to this podcast, when you come in here, track number 9, always bring a pen because you're gonna learn something. I just learned today.
I even
My
got
good
my pen
friend,
and paper.
yeah, my good friend Joanne Antoine with Common Cause Maryland, they had just put something out there. I believe it was yesterday. The Department of Justice was here in Baltimore, and they had a
Mm,
hearing right down here at the federal courthouse on Lombard Street. And the hearing was that the current administration wants access to our voting data.
mm,
They want to access our voting data, and they claim that they want to access it to make sure that nobody is voting that shouldn't be voting. First, let me say this. If you do not have a social security card, a birth certificate, a social security card, if you're not an American citizen, you cannot vote. Nobody that is in the country illegal, none of that. That's a falsity. You cannot vote. There are no people illegal or whatever that's in the country that can vote. So that's a bunch of crap. But also, this was yesterday. I just learned today that the Joy, who is in charge of the United States Postal Services, our mail, They have just threatened that if Maryland do not turn over the data that they want, that they are going to block the mail-in ballots
You know,
in Maryland. They are going to block the mail-in ballots. That means that over this, when they had that little debacle, which I thought was intentional, when they had
hmm
this fix up, it was 400,000 to 500,000 ballots. That's a half a million people. So imagine the general election is coming up in November. So imagine if a half a million Marylanders sent their mail-in ballots in, and when it get to the post office, they just threw it in a bin, and it never gets counted. That's the
hmm
latest threat. The
Look at
latest.
what's going on.
Hmm?
Look at, I said, look at that. Look at, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. Look at what's going on around the country. You know, this is this administration's opportunity to try to steal the election at any
Mm,
way possible. And if people do not wake up and
mm,
see this, we can no longer argue about some of the crazy stuff that we're arguing about. Rather, President, I mean, Vice President Harris was a person of Indian
mm,
descent, or she was a black descent. At the end of the day, that don't matter. We don't need to talk about her dating record. I never knew that woman dated Montel Williams, and they're like, what does that really
They
do
was all in the
with
business,
any?
weren't
Right?
they?
And let's just point out, they've never done that with a male presidential
Mm,
candidate.
hmm,
They've never went there down their vote in history, except if it was Bill Clinton, and we all know why. But beyond
hmm,
that, they've never went down that. But this is the time we cannot afford
mm,
to be divided. We cannot afford, if you stay home, then you might as well went out and voted for the opposition at this
mm,
point. Because that's what it is. You know, Trump didn't win because so many Democrats just loved him and we switched parties, or Trump didn't win because it was this huge influx of mega. He won because a lot of people stayed at home
mm,
because they didn't want to vote, you
mm,
know. And look at everything that's going on. Look at Tennessee, what they doing down there.
mm.
Look at you know, I love me some Jasmine Crockett. Look at what they did to Jasmine Crockett in
There.
Texas. You know,
Mm,
changing voter polling sites and all this other
mm,
kind of stuff, saying we're going to stay open at one time and then saying, oh, we're not going to do that. This
mm,
administration know that people are unhappy. Gas prices are through the roof. I have to think if I'm walking or driving now.
mm.
Like all of these things are happening. So they know people are happy. So they trying to find any way possible to stop people from voting. And we need to be up on it. We need to
I
make
agree.
time. We got to. Or
I
else we
agree.
going backwards.
Yeah, we are going backwards. And the thing is, like you said, that regardless of how you see yourself, how you live your lifestyle, or who you date, the gas prices are the same for everybody. Regardless
That's
of
it.
who, yes, I'm not going to be able to go up there and say, well, I live an alternative lifestyle. The gas should be cheaper for me. They be like, Miss, please, you got to turn yourself back around and go get some more coins.
If that was only the case. If that was
Yes,
only the
I would be there
case.
all the time. But I
Mhm.
agree, and I guess that leads back to one of the points that you had made is that we really have to find a way to bring our Bayard Russet to the table. You know, and it was just
Mhm.
really, it was kind of sad and heartbreaking that he was one of the main architects behind this movement, and he could not come out front or be up front and say, hey, I helped too. And there's so many other people that have been contributors to science, to math, to music, to architecture, poetry, name it. And it's people who have been contributors. And like the old school, you just didn't come out with that. People already knew because again, my grandmother, that old funny gal down the street,
That
or that
yeah.
little boy that lived on the corner, Jonathan, little
Mm.
Jonathan. They already knew, but it was something
That's
that
how
was
they
just
did.
never talked about. Everybody knew when you go to church and you see the choir, honey, and he just leading that choir and singing and carrying on. Everybody knows, but it's just not
Hmm.
something that is necessarily talked about. So I'm hoping that we can find some togetherness, because I guarantee you, in every family there is a cousin, auntie, uncle, sister, brother, niece, nephew that lives an alternative lifestyle. And we all have to find a way to kind of, be together and understand that these issues impact us as a whole. And I think we could be, I think we would move a little bit better and further in the future. And I guess the other thing that I would say, and being honest, is that some of the new children, some of the new kids kind of have to remember where they come from, and kind of have to remember that there is a level of self-respect that is incumbent upon them. You know what I mean? You can be
Mm,
flaming all you want, you can walk every runway you want, but there is a decency and a respect that came out of our community regardless of your lifestyle. And sometimes I think that that's being lost on some of
mm,
the younger kids. And I think that the older folks, and even some more conservative, because I'm gonna be pretty conservative in my thinking.
mhm, mhm,
Even some of the more conservative thinking people like myself, it's kind of like it's like a turn off. You understand what I'm saying? Some of the behavior. It's not your lifestyle. Sometimes it be your behavior that kind of divides our community. And
mm.
just hoping that we can come together some kind of way. And it's okay, that's your lifestyle, but again, there's a certain level of decency and respect that the African American community have always expected of anybody. They don't give a damn
Mhm.
what you do. You know what I mean? But it is how you do it that's really, I think, is the crux of the issue here, if you will. That some of that
Which
that comes like that.
Which I think, that's why we need more, programs. We need, I don't, more mentorship programs even in our
Mm-hmm.
community. We need more of that. Like, for example, it's no secret that I've been in ballroom. That I was a father in the ballroom scene. I'm actually the international ballroom scene first elected publicly elected person. So woo, 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 and that's internationally. So I'm
Hey,
really big. So
congratulations.
I am hyped when a ballroom historian called me to tell me that. Yes, we have those. We have ballroom historians.
I walked in a ball myself at one time at the clubhouse
You
in
did?
DC, and I
Are
won a
you
big
serious?
trophy. I did. I won a huge trophy.
Come on, legend. Come on.
Yes.
But even with the ballroom scene, that has been a place that has, provided, that provided a safe space and
Mm,
things like that. My my gay mother, Sandy, Honeycomb, Missy, those were my gay moms, and they were really moms,
mm.
Bam, who was my gay dad. Who is my gay dad? I'm sorry, I said was. So if you watch this interview, you probably like, what you mean? I ain't going nowhere. But who was my gay dad? Those people, they really poured in. And I think that's the main thing. When you have people that take on leadership positions, they
Mhm,
also have to be ready. I
mm,
think sometimes we pick people in certain leadership positions, like for example in the ballroom scene, because they may win a trophy, but what exactly can that individual teach a person, or how
mhm,
can that individual help guide folks? And I think that's really important as well, to make sure that we put the right people into these places when it comes down to guiding younger folks. But I definitely think mentorship programs are important and things like that. Those are some things that I'm actually looking for, hopefully, to work on a little bit more with the chamber. Of course, we have our student memberships and stuff like that. I'm the first Black president of the Maryland LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce as well. So really
mm.
trying to bring in more services and more things like that we can do, increasing our student members. I've granted some of those to some young people so that they can get involved and they can actually, network and get that experience and possibly find mentors and stuff like that. Right now, the Chamber of Commerce, we have the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. We've been on and popping with trying to do a lot of different things so that we could also increase our generational wealth. So
Mm,
many other communities support each other. However, we have so many different businesses as far as LGBTQ plus businesses. Um, for example, we bring in approximately somewhere around $4 trillion in the global economy. Now,
mm-hmm,
let that sink in. $4 trillion in the global economy. That is
mm-hmm,
more than some countries bring in. And
mm-hmm,
that's with LGBTQ folks. And those are the people that we know about. That's why we're not even sure if that number is good. There's a lot of people, like you said, that don't even, talk about their gender. That if you come around and ask them a question, you knock on their door, like let's say census something, and you ask these people, they like, no, because they feel like it's none of your damn business. You know what I
mm-hmm,
mean?
mm-hmm,
So it's a lot of people in our community that may not identify. So we know these numbers are even a lot higher than what the data shows. But as far as with the data, it's 4 trillion. So imagine if we put our dollars to people that support our community
mm,
and we remove our dollars from people that
mm-hmm,
don't.
mm-hmm,
Something that I've said numerous of times is look at before Trump got in office. You could not walk in a Target, you could not walk in a Walmart, you could not walk nowhere without being under the rainbow.
mm.
Everywhere you went was
That
rainbow
pride
this,
flag be
rainbow
everywhere,
that.
don't it?
Everywhere. Now go in there and see what you see. You really
Mm,
don't see too much. So
mm-hmm,
we can no longer continue spending our money on places that their support of us are temporary. We need to support places that we know we always are a permanent fixture when they're planning their initiatives, when they're planning their giveaways, when they're planning so many different things. We need to be in their mindset. The same way that we go and spend their money, we also deserve the loyalty, and that loyalty should not come and go based on the social or political climate.
mm. I agree. Go spend your money where people appreciate you. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Hold
definitely.
your money back and go to those black establishments and go to those gay-owned establishments so that you can be yeah, go where
Yeah.
you respected at for real financially.
Yeah.
That is
The website, yeah, the website is down there. We have a list of our different businesses on our website. We are always around to table and things like that. We have a lot of good benefits for folks
mhm,
that choose to become members, and our member fees aren't that much. We do yearly fees, and I have an open door policy. I've had folks that have hit me up that may be teachers or whatever the case may be, and we do find plans and ways to work with those people. So even if a person go on a website and if they have a question or things like that, we answer the questions. We are here. We're not the kind of chamber that like to turn our community members away. We will do our best to work with you or find a way that a person can still be included in some way or form.
okay, is that Maryland LGBTQ.org?
No, it's
Okay,
mdlgbt.org. Now we
okay.
did add the Q later and we added the plus sign, but however, the domain was already there. So it's
Oh, you didn't get those
mdlgbt.
additional acronyms. It's a lot. To the third
Yeah.
power, honey. It's an awful lot. Hopefully, they don't add any more numbers. You know what I mean?
Do you know I think it's like
LGBTQ plus
26.
IAZ Calowishes to the third.
I Googled it before. I
It's
think
a
it's
lot.
like 26 now.
That's crazy. That's like every alphabet that we have, and I think
Plus
that's
some
one of the other
numbers.
things that get people up in arms. Like, who else they gonna add? How much more can they add? You know what I mean?
Everybody
Always
is so
something.
There's so much room under this rainbow. We just say,
I
keep
hear
them
you.
all coming. Keep them all coming. Keep
Well,
them
if you
all
add
coming.
one more, that'd be more than the damn alphabets. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Don't
just
let
like
Dave Chappelle. Don't
26.
let Dave Chappelle hear you talk about add no numbers.
Okay. Be
Well,
like, Dave, we
some
got room
people
for
might
you
get
too if
offended
you
by
want to
that.
come over.
Yeah, some people might get offended. I like my man Dave Chappelle. He's hilarious, right? So I hope
Mm,
people don't
mm,
get offended. I hope that everybody
oh,
enjoy this conversation, and I hope that you would consider your family members, and I hope that you would consider the uncle that you know or the brother that you have, and consider this conversation, and consider, if they're not included, be inclusive. Consider what
mm,
they might need, and consider reaching out to them, and kind of come together, because of course this is all about getting on the right track and being on the right track. And I see this as an issue, particularly in the African American community, that we need to kind of wrap ourselves around and really, move forward with it. Because, like you said, this is really about all of us. You can't separate, an African American gay person, African American lesbian. You really can't, because we can't afford that. We have to find
mm,
a way to get along with our brothers and sisters, regardless of, who you care for and who you love, and vice versa. Our extended family members have to understand that this is how the family operates. This is how we do things, and it's okay. This is how we've always done things, in decency and with respect. But
mm, mm.
it's been absolutely wonderful. We still got a few minutes, so I really want to be able to chime in on election, because I know that you are running. You and I both serve on
I
the
was about to say.
Democratic State Central Committee. I'm running for the 40th district. Anybody living in the 40th,
Ish.
vote for me. Otherwise, I'll
Vote.
face.
Y'all better, when y'all go in there, first of all, C is at the front. So
Yeah,
y'all
yeah,
ain't got
yeah.
no reason.
Now you
Monica
ain't gotta go all
Cooper,
the way down. I'm at the top. But you
right
are
there.
running in that's the 43rd or 43rd A.
43rd.
It's the
43rd A. And let me
okay.
just say this. Also, just so people know, the previous views that were expressed on the show are those of mine, not
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
necessarily
That's
from
right.
any entity. People start, yeah, people may feel away, but hopefully everything I say that everybody, can at least respect. But yes, the 43rd District Central Committee, there are a few additional fellas running. You can only pick four. So I
Hmm.
only need one. I only need one. I'll
That's
just
right.
make sure Keith Holt is one. And please make sure Monica Cooper is another one. So, I think we'd be doing good work on Central, for the
Me
most
too.
part. Don't you agree?
Me too.
Yeah.
I think that we do good work. And in fact, 2018 is when I first got elected to the Democratic State Central Committee. I got
Mm,
reelected in 2022. And when I first came on board in 2018, it was hardly anybody knew about the State Central Committee and what they do.
mm,
I came in, I raised a lot of hell. They were like, who is this girl from Sandtown? Who is this? And I'm like, because I came in the door saying, hey, we need to do more. It's
mm,
always about doing more with the people that we represent. It's not about clicks. It's not about, I'm taking pictures with the governor. I'm taking pictures with this one. Don't nobody care about none of that stuff. We care about
mm,
results. We care about helping these children that's getting murdered out here in the street. We care about helping
mm,
their mothers to be able to get to them before they end up out there in the street. We care about funding organizations that's going to really do the work, not organizations that because you and I are line sisters or line brothers, or because you and I we worked together for 20 years, then I'm gonna make sure you get some money. No, that's not how it's
mm,
supposed to work. It's supposed to be give the people the money that's going to do the right thing. I could go on and on when we get to talking about politics. I'm not. But everybody that know me, they already know I am authentic and genuine. And I don't put my stamp on nothing and nobody unless I know that that person is genuine about our people. And Keith Holt is definitely one of them. I put my
yeah.
stamp on this brother, and I hope that people come out and vote for him. He is a fantastic human being. And yes, it's Pride Month here in Baltimore. It's Pride Weekend.
It
Um,
is.
Go out, hang out with your brothers and your sisters and your aunties and
Have
your uncles,
fun.
and just have some fun for a change, because we're going through so much as a human race. We're going through a whole bunch. And sometimes you just got to take time out and have yourself a little fun and enjoy yourself. So again, man, I just want to say thank you. I love
Thank
you. I
you.
will
I love
always
you.
love you. And yeah, I will see you soon. And I'm so happy I had a chance to interview you. Thank you.
Thank
I love you.
you. I love you
Enjoy
more.
your day,
Thank you
okay?
so much. I
All
will,
right.
and have a good, and make sure you win, and I'll try to make sure I win, and we're
Yes,
going to
we'll
do
be
this another
celebrating
4 years.
soon.
You heard me?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Mwah.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for
But
tuning in. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all with these very diverse conversations that we need to have. So thank you. Talk to you later.
We inspire, greatness at track number 9. Stay on the right track and let your light shine. Step by step, reach for what's true. Track number 9, your greatness is waiting.